saying something. Welcome back to the Convo Couch, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pastor Jardula.
I'm Fiorella.
And we have Johnny Sue on the ones and twos with the bird.
Someone gets pissed off about something I say on Twitter? No. Say it isn't so.
You get too savage.
Say it isn't so.
You get too savage. You can be nice about the things. I mean, you can just go into things lightly and easy. For instance, when people are smearing Tulsi, they have concerns, especially when it comes to Modi. They might not know anything about Indian politics or actually what's going on.
But they overnight become an expert because they hear something or a rumor that someone says, and then they just go with it, right? Yeah. That's how we should all conduct ourselves on social media.
No receipts, fam.
No receipts.
They never have any receipts. Pieter, that guy out there, we caught him at the event. We asked him, hey, all these accusations you're making, you're saying she's taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from the BJP. Do you have that exact number? No. Do you have the paperwork? No. Why not? You have a suitcase, a briefcase of papers to pass out on Tulsi Gabbard, but you can't have one piece of paper that says, look where she took the money.
And he blocks everybody. He blocks everybody who questions him. I mean, we can go on Twitter and watch just how it all unfolds, and it's a little ridiculous. So let's get right into this, because I'm losing my patience. I'm losing my cool with people's
But you got to be happy.
Ignorance.
No, there's a good thing. Now, I have learned so much about Indian politics in the last 6 months because nobody ever talked about it before, fam. When did this start?
Okay, so these smears, by the way, began recently. But the thing is, this all happened 5 years ago. Tulsi met with Modi in 2014, and Obama had a bromance with him as well. She was part of this committee that literally met with adversaries, one of them being Modi. And it wasn't until 2016 that these smears began to kind of rise up, that she got kind of blacklisted by the Democratic Party. Because if you remember, in 2016, she gave up from being vice chair of the Democratic Party, stepped down, and endorsed Bernie Sanders. And in doing so, she completely alienated herself from the political establishment who up until then had favored her, always talking positively about her. We can go back to news clips where they spoke about her in a very, very positive manner. And I don't know if you recall, but we could literally go back and see how they spoke of her in that
How about
way.
the WikiLeaks documents about I'm so sorry for moving your page there. The WikiLeaks document that showed that there were people threatening her after she walked away, and they were disappointed.
Right.
People connected, money people connected.
Right.
I'm sorry if I lost your spot
Right.
there. But that's when we saw that. Like right when she walked away, it was like, oh, girl, you done messed up and left the Democratic Party. Who do you think you are? Yeah. You'll be cut off from funding. You're no longer, your career is done. You walk away from us. I remember that.
But nothing has been as bad as the moment she decided to become and run for president of the United States. So think about why. Think about why things that happened 4 years ago are now just resurfacing. First of all, think about that. Because why? Like, is anybody else's things from 5 years ago where they met with an adversary resurfacing? No. And we have to understand that this is exactly because this is a manipulation by the Democratic establishment. And some quote unquote progressives are buying into it and actually doing their work for the establishment,
they really are.
and literally dividing Tulsi supporters and Bernie supporters who should be standing together.
Yes.
Because they represent an anti-establishment different system. And if you don't understand that, you're doing a disservice to Bernie Sanders. You're doing a disservice to this movement. Period. Point blank. There's no ands, ifs, or but about that.
Can I say something? Those are the reasons why I'm so proud that you're my partner. You just hit it on the nose.
Fam.
We should be united together on this. You are actually doing the work. No, but you are actually doing the work for the establishment. And that's what I've been saying the whole time as I'm reading and looking at all this stuff, as I'm getting blocked by certain people online. You're doing the work of the establishment. Go ahead, fam.
So Tulsi Gabbard appears to be a threat to the establishment. And even Ro Khanna came onto this. And several people in the California Democratic Party have, of course, aligned themselves, because Ro Khanna is part of the California Democratic Party. Now, let me say this. I've actually liked Ro Khanna. I liked his anti-war stances. Yep. He is someone that has been pretty decent with progressives, and I fully was supportive of him this whole entire time, up until he started shifting his stance on certain things regarding foreign policy that I was like, this isn't this isn't good. And then he decided to go after Tulsi unfairly and capitalize on the fact that she has been excluded from the debates and the smears that have been ongoing since she decided to run for president. So the smears began when I said, and then this is the next thing that we're going to talk about, is the India's national policy and how complex it is in comparison to what our Western media makes it be. So there's an element of oversimplifying this very complex issue, and Pasa's going to go deeper into that in a minute, but this has nothing to do with Tulsi running for president in the United States of America. What's happening in Kashmir is horrible, but we can't pretend that all of a sudden we're all experts on India's national foreign policy, which is what people are pretending to be. You ask people, well, what do you know about India's foreign policy and the relations with Pakistan? They're like, well, I don't really know that much. Then how the hell do you have an opinion on who these people are? And further, their ties to Tulsi. There are very pro-Pakistani interests as well. There is a Pakistan and an Indian issue that we spoke about months ago when we first started debunking these smears against Tulsi. We can't be intervening. So
real quickly before we get into it, I just showed the Ro Khanna tweet. What was that about again?
The Ro Khanna tweet.
Yeah,
okay,
I just showed it.
So the Ro Khanna tweet basically was Ro Khanna kind of doubling down and punching at in response to Peter Friedrich, or whatever his name is, who had posted a video, and there was an article. Peter posted an article where he was referencing how Tulsi was received hundreds of thousands of dollars from the RSS and had direct ties to Modi, and how she was pro-Modi and a Hindu fascist and an Islamophobe. All the same smears that have been regurgitated time and time again. So Ro Khanna's tweet was problematic because he is a co-chair of Bernie's campaign, and here he is doubling down on these smears that are smears because there's no proof of them, and a lot of people got upset. A lot of Tulsi supporters got upset, understandably so. It caused some people to say, I'm not going to vote for Bernie anymore, and we don't need that. I mean, that's exactly what we don't need. And then I don't know if I have the tweet here, but Nina Turner had to come out and write a tweet saying, oh, sending love and aloha to my sister Tulsi Gabbard. And she did that because, and this is wholly my opinion, but it's based on the fact that I know that when you're running a political campaign, you can't exactly get yourself involved in anything that someone said on Twitter or someone said this. You want to, as a campaign, someone campaigning for president, Bernie Sanders can't exactly get on there, and neither can Tulsi. You haven't seen her get on there or respond either. You can't do that. And so I understand people getting mad, but we cannot blame Bernie Sanders on this because there are things that he cannot do. There's a line he's walking to, if you notice how the establishment is treating him. So this is a very difficult thing, and Ro Khanna just freaking added to it. And it was very, very unfair, especially as someone that has stood with him in his anti-war stances and has been pretty much an ally to him.
Yeah. And can I just say that I really, for me too, this is Nina Turner at her best, going in there and doing some damage control, saying that's right, I was there with my sister, we need to be together, united, and they acknowledged each other.
Right.
You know, I think the way Tulsi has handled this thing is she's handled it honorably, not lashing out on anybody. And yet it's opened the Pandora's box again, fam. And I want to let you go because you're on a roll, because when you brought this stuff to my attention, and we get deeper into Roe, W-O-H-W? Wow. Oh, I don't know. But it's great stuff. Go ahead, fam.
Okay, so first of all, we have to stop involving ourselves with issues that we know nothing about. And just the media has this tendency to just give an opinion, and people have a tendency to accept it. Oh, we must stand with Kashmir. And I'm not saying we shouldn't. Or that we should. Because I think people need to know more about the situation. What's happening is horrible, and I condemn any sort of violence. But at the same time, like, you need to know what you're talking about before you take a stance. And it's worth noting that Faiz Shakir is a Pakistani, and he is Bernie Sanders' campaign manager. And there are different influences that are going to happen in a campaign and different points of view that people are going to have. I'm not making any accusations, but I'm simply saying that this issue is far too complex to be this black and white issue that we all tend to fall into. So the biggest thing I have here is that Ro Khanna has more ties to the RSS than Tulsi, and people are going to deny it and say, no, it's not the same thing, because they love having a double standard when it comes to Tulsi Gabbard. And I have an article here where he basically it basically talks about how he got money from these supporters. They're Hindu Indian supporters, pro-India, they were supportive of the RSS. They didn't have ties to them, but it says that let me just read it. And Ro Khanna saw as Honda's big weak spot. Ro Khanna ran against Honda, and who was a Republican. And the Modi issue was a perfect issue for Ro Khanna. It differentiated him from the incumbent, who was boosting his support and it was going to boost his support among Hindu voters in the district. After entering the race in 2013, Ro immediately began badgering Mike Honda and using the congressman's support of the visa ban on Modi as a way to promote his own candidacy. Khanna courted the pro-Modi Indian Americans community and spoke at Hindu American Foundation HAF events. When local Hindu community leaders wanted to invite Modi to inaugurate the newly renovated Hindu temple in Fremont, Khanna signed onto a letter by HAF asking Congressman Honda to reconsider his anti-Modi stance. So HAF is a U.S. lobby created that is just very pro-Hindu, pro-India. And he courted them. He didn't just go and meet with adversaries. He wasn't just nice to them because they liked him because he was Hindu, and they did like him because he was Hindu. Bottom line. But he also courted them and changed his political stance in order to capitalize the votes on him.
Busted, man. Totally busted. Where are the Bernie supporters who yell at Tulsi Gabbard for these ties?
Oh, they're still there.
Where are you guys at? Oh, my Lord. Keep going, fam.
So, basically, like I said, Ro Khanna courted them, and then he got the full endorsement of the HAF co-founder, Dr. Mihir Mengani, who sent out an email to members and supporters asking them to donate to Ro Khanna's campaign and invited them to a fundraiser he was holding at his own house. This didn't happen with Tulsi. They didn't have a fundraiser for her. None of this happened. And Meghani's letter repeatedly stressed Ro's pro-Modi stance and involvement in the HAF. And so he literally said, Ro Khanna is running for the U.S. Congress against Mike Honda. Honda wrote a letter asking for the State Department to deny Modi a visa. So in turn, they were going to support Ro Khanna. And he said, I am asking you to give your strong support to Ro Khanna, who was running against Mike Honda for a congressional seat in California, Silicon Valley. It is imperative that as Indians and Hindus that we support Ro. As part of my commitment, I have given the maximum donation of $5,200 to only two candidates this year, Tulsi Gabbard and Ro Khanna, and I hope that you will give your maximum support to him as well. He gave money to two people because they were Hindu, but the difference is that Tulsi Gabbard didn't have fundraisers with this guy. Tulsi Gabbard didn't seek out his endorsement to capitalize on Hindu votes. She didn't do any of that. She is Hindu by religion, not by ethnicity, by the way. Hinduism isn't necessary. It's a religion. But Ro Khanna is actually descendant of India. Tulsi Gabbard is not. She's just practicing the religion of Hinduism. And so when I see people talk about Tulsi Gabbard's a Hindu fascist, Tulsi Gabbard hates Muslims, Tulsi Gabbard's an Islamophobe, blah, blah, blah. Why do you guys, especially some of you in the California Democratic Party, have zero to say in regards to Ro Khanna's ties to the RSS? How is he working for the Bernie campaign if he's a Hindu fascist? I just want to know, because you guys are all full of hypocrisy. And the one thing I hate more than anything is hypocrisy. And that's all I've seen from some of the people in the California Democratic Party, some of the people in general, some of the smearing, some of the disappointment in Bernie supporters who have literally, just freaking capitalized on this to make, what, do you think it helps Bernie? It doesn't help him at all. It doesn't help him one bit. This creates division where we should stand together. You are losing allies for pushing the smear. And all it is a smear, because I literally just showed you how nobody's talking about Ro Khanna's actual ties and his actual seeking endorsement and his actual fundraisers he's had with these people. And according to Shukla, who is one of the founders of HAF, he said in an email to Sludge that the Hindu American Foundation denies any association with groups based in India. Now, whether or that is true or not, even in regards to Ro Khanna, you can't even say he's directly received money from Modi. I'm not even trying to tie Ro Khanna to Modi. I am simply saying that he did fundraisers with RSS supporters, and then he did seek out their endorsement because it would help him politically. Then what happened is he changed his mind because he saw that he got a lot of flack for it. He changed his mind, and then he fell in line and did what everybody else did. So that is the reality of the situation here that a lot of people don't know about, and I'm really tired of hearing the same 3 articles that people keep regurgitating, and people like Peter are not journalists. He's a freaking I think he's mentally insane, honestly. I think there's something wrong with this guy, but he just literally has zero proof of his allegation.
I think he just carved up this one little area where he can just try to be a champion of and kind of mimic this kind of virtue of this is the BJP. They're tied to Nazism and fascism. Which you go into that whole situation, is very, very complicated. And I don't want to talk about that right now because we have so much to cover. But the thing that really sticks out to me, fam, is when you do talk about Modi, we're talking about right now Ro Khanna with his ties to, the Hindu
HAF.
HAF. But, also Obama went and saw Modi, Hillary Clinton saw Modi. Where's the double standard? You see, nobody said anything when these people were meeting with heads of state. And furthermore, when I start questioning people about what's going on in India and Indian politics, they have no clue. They're just repeating the fact. There he is, Obama. I mean, come on. It's such a double standard. And it just proves our point. And it only hurts. When you said it might help. It might not help Bernie. It hurts him. I'm going to say that. This is not something that's just going to go unchecked and not have a negative effect. It's going to have a opposite effect. It's going to hurt Bernie because people outside your Democratic bubble, they understand foreign policy. They see this. They see the double standard, and they're just going to move further away from any Democrat.
You're going to lose to Donald Trump.
You are.
And it doesn't matter. Yeah. And it doesn't. I mean, at the end of the day, I just think it's the hypocrisy. It's the double standard. It's everything. Also, meeting with adversaries like Tulsi has done. She's very diplomatic. Doesn't mean that she's somehow in their favor. In fact, people close to her campaign have said that she doesn't necessarily have a favorable view of Modi at all. It's just her meeting with him has led people to think that she's somehow, and her being Hindu, that she somehow supports what he's doing. Yeah. And we have yet to hear a statement on her on Kashmir. But again, why do we involve ourselves with things that we do not know enough about? And she's the kind of person that's going to understand all sides of an issue before she makes a statement. And, frankly, we've gotten so used to being reactionary and having these emotional reactions to things and saying, oh, I support this person, I support that person. And we don't even know the whole picture. And we need to start not doing that
anymore.
And
I think the fact that they can't understand that what she's doing is geopolitical. I say it all the time, it's geopolitical. They say, oh, well, why did she say favor with India over Pakistan, where they're mostly Hindus and whatnot? It's because where do a lot of terrorists get harbored at? Where do we find Osama bin Laden? It's in Pakistan. So her soldier mind, she understands these groups, these ISIS, Al-Qaeda. And when she says, a guy like Ken O'Keefe, who's an ex-Marine, he says, we give him power. We've empowered maniacs,
created
psychos.
These people.
These people are crazy. So in her mind, as a soldier, she understands that that's not a government. These are unstable people. And I'm not talking about Hezbollah and Hamas. I'm talking about ISIS, Al-Qaeda, these groups that are in Pakistan. So as a soldier, geopolitically, she's aligned herself with the government of India over Pakistan. It has nothing to do with her being a Hindu. And that's what you people can't understand. She understands foreign policy.
And the people forming their opinions don't have any idea about foreign policy. So I just, to me, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So let's why is she the only one being attacked? Let's talk about why.
Because she's the biggest anti-war voice out there.
Exactly. She's a threat. She, ever since she signed on to endorse Bernie, she's been a threat. They don't want her close to Bernie. I mean, if we think about it, they have yet to be on the debate stage together. Smears by powerful people have validated the mainstream media and have been validated by the mainstream media, and progressive voices have co-opted think tanks like TYT, like other places that were supposed to be progressive, and have started, kind of pushing that idea. And if you go look at the money at who's funding these think tanks, you realize that these are neoliberal groups that really would
Yeah.
seek to suffer with Tulsi being in power or Bernie being in power for that matter. But they're using Bernie because it gets them views, it gets them popularity. That's the only reason. Do I really think they're supporting Bernie? No. And Americans have yet been manipulated into another impossible quagmire and having opinions about things that they don't know about. For instance, there is, you know, possible like humanitarian aid that we can provide, and I'm not against humanitarian aid if it's actually humanitarian aid. The problem is 9 times out of 10 we involve ourselves and we cause more problems than by stepping outside.
Yeah.
So what's really happening, fam?
Well, I mean, I like the fact that you use the word quagmire because it really is nothing but a quagmire. And to say the situation in Kashmir is complicated is an understatement to say the least. You know, and it's a leftover, unresolved problem from when the British left in the 1940s over Kashmir, this one area that was controlled by the Brits. They left, and they kind of left this agreement, this temporary article. It was a temporary article, which is important to understand, which is Article 370, and they left it in place to say this is an undisputed territory in Kashmir. However, you know, some people in our media are going to say that Modi dissolved this Article 370 just unjustly. It was a temporary article, and he used that temporary article and lifted it and went in and took over India-controlled Kashmir. And a lot of people say it's a power grab, but there's a lot of problems that go on in Kashmir. If you would remember Bill Clinton said it's one of the most dangerous areas whatsoever. And Kashmir has had over 40,000 deaths in this Indian-controlled area, the contested area, in over the last 3 decades. 40,000 deaths, and it's just crazy. And you can see, I put an article over here. It says the Himalayan territory spanning in India and Pakistan is claimed by both entirely and has brought a nuclear-armed nations to an open conflict several times since independence from Britain in 1947. Violence in Kashmir has left 40,000 dead since the separatist insurgency against Indian rule in 1989. So you can see this area has been a hotbed. It's a lot of, a contested area. So he wanted to stop the violence there too as well. There was too much violence going on there, but we have to look into the situation. It's a very complicated situation. It's between India and Pakistan. Great Britain never resolved it. They left it open. But this is also about the development of what's going on. Really, this economics. Fam, would you be surprised if I told you that Modi's move on Kashmir might have some economics behind it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Everything.
Kashmir is rich in natural resources.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's a beautiful land. India's had this economic boom. So when you talk about India, when people go after Modi, they don't also talk about poverty. Because I thought, fam, that our number one enemy out there was poverty, right? Mm-hmm. So when you want to talk about 2 countries that have lowered the poverty level drastically, it's China and India. You know what I'm saying? But their economic boom is starting to slow down. So Modi sees this area as a development place. You know what I mean? He wants to turn Kashmir into a tourist spot. He wants to use those resources. He wants to bring education, railroads. He wants to develop that area, and that's really going to help their GDP. So that's why he's doing that. I
mean, you could also look at that as gentrification in a way.
Well, that's what the Pakistani president said.
Right. I mean, like I said, I want to make it very clear. I'm not defending Modi. I'm not defending anything in relation to that. I am simply saying that this has nothing to do with Tulsi Gabbard running for president.
Yes.
This is a very complicated issue that, like he's just pointed out, has 2 sides because Modi was reelected by the majority of his people. He's a very popular guy.
Yeah.
And so for us to be forming opinions on this and just going on this crusade to just talk about like who we support and who we don't support is a little ridiculous. And if you guys understand Indian politics, you know the majority of Indian Americans are very conservative. And a lot of them are going to support Modi types of government that are more conservative, according to just where they fall in line politically. But that doesn't mean that this is just an easy issue of black and white. There's a lot of gray in this issue.
It's a lot of things you got to ask. So you're talking about Modi getting reelected. 40 million Muslims voted for him. You know what I'm saying?
40 million
40 million Muslims voted
Okay.
for him. So I mean, you have to take
insane.
that into factor. So I mean,
I bet people didn't know that 40 million Muslims voted for Modi.
well, no, it's Hindu fascism, but but see, I'm going to do another story about this. I'm going to talk about the BJP and how the ties are. There is this nationalistic kind of mindset, but we've talked about this before. Most of the voters out there, and where I think personally from my studies, Modi kind of maybe pulled some sort of a Trump when it came to the election. In other words, I believe that race baited, and he got all these people to vote for him because he race baited them. I think that Modi kind of used the same tactic in a way where he let the people underneath him kind of pander towards the Hindus to get them, because they're low informed voters. You're talking about under 40% of people in India didn't have a toilet before Modi took place. 99% of the country has a toilet now. You know what I'm saying? Has sanitation. These are some of his programs and his policies, because that was also his attack. He was going to get those Hindus as well, and he was also going to take people out of poverty, and they voted for him. Remember, Modi had more votes, and I don't want to get into the point of standing up and supporting Modi. I'm just saying that why? Because Tulsi meets with him ahead of his state, that we should take this and spin this in a crazy way, just attack her because she's anti-war. You know what I'm saying? And the lockdown now, fam. I just want to talk about the lockdown. I'm sorry, I got a little something on you. I'm getting excited. They talked about this lockdown in India, how it was inhumane and whatnot. He went into that area. He had his forces there. They had this curfew to curb the peace. You know what I'm saying? To keep the peace in. If there was no curfew, shit would have been gone crazy. You know what I'm saying? I think you've gotten some information on this,
yeah,
right?
so
go ahead, you get into this a little bit.
Well, Sheila Pan is from India. And her husband, she was telling me how her husband had been on a lockdown, and they actually preferred it because if not, she was telling me Pakistan would attack. I mean, and she was telling me that the RSS isn't what America's making it out to be, that Modi isn't the boogeyman. I mean, she was telling me something entirely different than what we're hearing on media. And what is the Indian gentleman with the YouTube channel?
Sham Shawarma.
Sam Shawarma.
Sham Shawarma.
Sham Shawarma has a YouTube channel, if you guys want to check it out, where he talks in depth about these issues, and he's much more informed.
Yeah. Great show with
and
Nico.
He's from there. He did a whole thing with Nico. Again, like, I'm not saying one side is right and the other. I frankly am of the belief that the truth falls somewhere in the middle. That I think like there's contention probably on both ends, but I do believe that there's a strong money-driven interests that the U.S. is now trying to consider which way to go. And again, because Modi met with Obama, because Trump likes him, because all these other problematic people like him, I don't necessarily think he's an innocent lamb. But I also think that tying him directly to Tulsi Gabbard and calling her a Hindu fascist for simply practicing Hinduism is Hindu-phobic, and it's wrong, and it's a smear. And this issue is clearly complex with multiple sides and people with different opinions on it.
And we should let the Indian people decide what.
We should let them decide.
They decided that Modi should be their leader. He should be their Modi. And furthermore, this lockdown was necessary to keep the peace. And now 90% of the lockdown has been pulled off. I believe they're retracting. They're just making sure all their forces are in place. The communications will be back up. They had a small area where they let some journalists in, and I know that was a big thing. That why were they cutting off people and stuff? But they had to put the area on lockdown. And furthermore, this is just an area where we should be keeping out of it because we're not involved. It's totally different. Like the politicians in America and this is where I don't agree with some of our friends in the squad, and I didn't agree with them in China too as well. This is an area we're not involved with. This is something we're not there. The lockdown is going to do far less damage than the sanctions that we oppose on Venezuela, what it would do to the children and the poor people there. Right. Our mindset is in the wrong place because I don't see anybody speaking up for the children in Venezuela from these sanctions.
And let's talk about the humanitarian aid and Bernie on Kashmir.
Yeah, we have a video and yeah.
I am also deeply concerned about the situation in Kashmir, where the Indian government has revoked Kashmiri autonomy, cracked down on dissent, and instituted a communications blackout. The crackdown in the name of security is also denying the Kashmiri people access to medical care. Even many respected doctors in India have acknowledged that the Indian government imposed restrictions on travel are threatening the life-saving care that patients need. India's action is unacceptable. The communications blockade must be lifted immediately, and the United States government must speak out boldly in support of international humanitarian law and in support of a UN-backed peaceful resolution that respects the will of the Kashmiri people.
Ready? I love when he says law. They must respect the law. Get me a cup of coffee. It's cold in here.
He's such a Brooklyn guy. Look, I know you have a lot to say, so I'm just gonna
Go
get
ahead.
it out of the way with what
go.
I'm gonna say. I'm kind of iffy on this stance simply because I love Bernie. I love him. You guys know how much I love him. My phone has Bernie. But I feel like he is being advised. He's being advised in a way that could be problematic because taking such a stance. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be opposed to violence. By all means, be opposed to it. But this is a stance some Indian Americans are completely against. Like, I've heard from a lot of them, they're completely against what he did here. They're very upset with what he said. And this is such a polarizing issue that I respect him for taking a stand against violence, and he wouldn't be Bernie without it. But at the same time, we are involving ourselves in something that should be left up to the Indian people to resolve in their own country. And I think once we say something like that, we're going to alienate one side or the other. And, you could be a little bit more diplomatic in it. And I do believe this is some foreign policy advising he is getting rather than this is just him saying it because he thought he would say it. I think he's being advised on what to say because this is the popular thing to say. And it seems at first glance like an easy thing to say, okay, I stand against violence and the curfew. But what I'm hearing from other people in India actually there is that they're okay with the curfew, that this is good because it prevents, like Pasta said, the violence coming from Pakistan. So this is a very complex issue, and I feel like you polarize people when you say something like this, and ultimately we need to leave their issues to them.
And to give context, Bernie said this at the Islamic Society of North America convention, and was the only candidate other than Julian Castro to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's understandable he's going to say this to a lot of. Imagine him saying something else to a great Muslim population. So I totally get why he did what he did. I don't necessarily agree with it.
Like I said, to me, it's once again more examples of how Bernie Sanders needs to get new foreign policy advisors. This is just, I don't know why he went there on this and did this, and and he was going security, what I'm saying? And we've heard from people that say this is a very serious security issue when it comes to this lockdown. And I've said it before, the lockdown, in this 30-day lockdown that's going on is nothing in comparison. Yeah, there were some security issues, there was some Medicare issues, there was some medical issues, food, all that stuff. But it was a necessary step if he was going to take Kashmir back. We can argue the fact, should he have gone in and take Kashmir back all day long? Complicated issue. We shouldn't be involved. But once again, the lockdown, it pales in comparison to the sanctions that we ourselves impose our country on another country.
And not only that, I mean, I think we have to be careful with talking about humanitarian aid to other countries because we've seen it time and time again turn into some sort of military intervention, because that's usually what the United States does. I'm not saying that he would do that. Of course, I don't think he would ever do that. I think he is a peace candidate. But at the same time, where is the humanitarian aid to the Palestinians? Where's the humanitarian aid to the people in Yemen? Why is the humanitarian aid only tied to our money-eyed interests? And that's something that I'm always very suspect of. when it comes to foreign policy and our meddling in it.
Yeah,
So,
remember something happens to us with the terror attack and we go crazy. We start invading countries. We're still in Afghanistan
Right.
after 9/11, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? The Indian
Yeah.
people, they get those Mumbai attacks when those Islamic militant came there and shot a bunch of people in the streets, and they react in these according ways like, oh, we're going to put a lockdown on for 30 days for security issues, and we have politicians throwing their arms in the air, getting involved in a situation they shouldn't get involved with. Their mind is not in the right place. And like I said, I wish Bernie needs to get some new, is his name Mike Huff or David Huss or whoever? What's the guy's name again?
Matt something.
Matt Duff.
Duff.
Matt Duss. We need to, we have to encourage Bernie to get rid of this guy. I'm sorry. This is really hurting his libertarian votes.
I can agree with that.
It really is. He needs to get these libertarian votes. And that's why, what I'm saying? And all they have to do, if you want to understand foreign policy as far as things go, just follow Ron Paul. He's almost dead on every single situation. The Ron Paul Institute started talking about what was going on in China, and I was saying this too as well. I understand Bernie wants to stand with these supporters. You can see all these other people standing with these supporters, but we're funding this. These are funded agitators from the NED, and it just came out. Jimmy Lai. Pictures with Pelosi, pictures with John Bolton, funneling money in to opposition, paying money to throw fuel on the fire. And that's what we need not do. We need not get involved, and we need not get involved with our own money, fam. Not our tax dollars through the NED. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And he did make a statement that he basically said the communications blockade must be lifted immediately, and the United States government must speak out boldly in international humanitarian aid. That's what he said. So I just think, I think that statement is a little bit... it could impact him negatively.
It could.
Yeah.
I
think it has with the Indian American population and with some people that are very keen on foreign policy.
Yes.
Like I said, I've spoken to some people and they didn't really like that he said that. Some people really love that he said that, saying we need to stand with Kashmir. Again, my whole point is this issue is far more complex than either standing with Kashmir or not. And it's not that you don't stand with the people being murdered or the violence or the inability to get medical aid. It's the fact that this issue isn't our problem, as we don't know anything about it. And we should stop meddling in foreign governments and countries, because we usually create more issues for these people when we do that.
Okay, so I want to say hi to Michael Cruz out there, Lotta Escato, Laura Mountain Galpal, Eder, Tulsi or Trump, he says.
Oh, God.
Doug Twyman, Aurelius Prime.
Hey.
Tal, who says, wow, you guys don't know anything about Kashmir. Please educate us. Send us any emails at theconvocouch@gmail.com. theconvocouch@gmail.com. If you have an opinion.
We did a lot of research, actually, on this issue. So what we do know is actually backed by facts, what we have said.
Allison Murphy.
By means.
All right, I'm just going to ignore him. You got something to say, send it to us. We'll take a look at it.
I respond. You know how I be.
David Harris. Samuel Chison. Thank you so much for coming on over.
Allison
we have 195.
Murphy, Kathy Lloyd.
Yep. Are you on the Facebook? No. We got Waller Esther Hargrove, Manuela Arizala, Valerie Flanagan, and Art Webb and Julie Smith. Valerie Flanagan from Iowa. Hit at us at theconvocouch@gmail.com. I understand there's some stuff going on with the virtual caucuses in Iowa. There's been some type of objection that the Democratic Party says they don't want them doing it. I don't know. Whatever information you got, send it our way. We love you. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we have a YouTube, a Facebook, a Patreon. If you can help us out, subscribe to our Patreon. And if you have anything to say, you can reach us at theconvocouch@gmail.com. Fam, what do we have next? So wait 1 second. We have a little bit what's in the news real quick. Johnny, how about the other candidates on Israel? We were going to talk about it. You found a little video, didn't you?
Right, yeah. So we're talking about foreign policy of these candidates and, what they said about it. The other day I came across a video of Mr. Andrew Yang.
Where the Yang Gang at?
Oh,
Where
God.
the Yang Gang at?
This was horrible.
Let's just take a look real quick here.
Yeah, Yang Gang. What do you guys have to say about this?
In terms of the money we're giving to an ally like Israel, my first instinct would be why would we reduce it? And so certainly if I communicated something else, that's not the idea at all. There are certain relationships we have that, to me, we need to rebuild and strengthen. And I would suggest that our relationship with Israel is one of them.
And what about the Arabs?
You'd have to look at it in a case by case and say like what's happening in terms of our bilateral relationship with a particular party. But my zeal is to try and build strong alliances and partnerships. If someone's been working with us for a long time, they should feel like they're being rewarded for that, frankly. And then if someone has an interest in working with us, we should be open to rewarding that too. But for each country, like you'd have to look at what's going on at that time and what the lead-in has been.
So when it comes to land in Israel that's being taken, even though it was granted to certain Palestinian families by the UN, how do you feel about constricting Israel almost to prevent that from happening and constricting political influence by American leaders in Israel?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but I'll answer it more generally, which is like my stance on this is that it's going to be hard for the United States to constrict like an ally or really just about any of its partners in a decision that they feel is central to them, and I don't think that's our priority. It's not that we're somehow giving people aid so that we can then twist their arm about things that that they find important.
So yeah, important to emphasize that
An
he's
ally like Israel. So in terms of the money we're giving to an ally like Israel, my first instinct would be like, why would we reduce it?
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I got a couple reasons. Sorry, go ahead.
we're already like super tied to Israel. What are you talking about? Like we're already pretty much they pretty much control a lot of our government. Like they're the ones that have more influence on us than Russia. We literally funnel them money for weapons, for military aid, for anything they desire. AIPAC has so much control over our entire political world. It's disgusting to even say, oh, we need to, strengthen our
or
ties
why would
to
I?
Israel.
He just gave you the reason. AIPAC, the biggest lobbyist, they're lobbying.
Insane.
Please.
That's horrible, and I don't think there's a way to rationalize that yang gangs. I'm sorry. That's really bad foreign policy to me. That really does I've been pretty friendly to Andrew Yang, even though I don't agree with his nationalist type of policies.
Word salad.
But again, the foreign policy is such an important issue to me. When you're saying we need deeper ties to Israel, and you're a Silicon Valley kind of techie guy that, I don't trust that. That's
another news that Bernie Sanders wants to ban police use of facial recognition tech, and this is so you see this stuff too as well, that a lot of people got fired up when they saw the Chinese protesters pushing down the facial recognition thing, and they looked at it as oh, see, they're fighting against the communists of China, and they kind of spun that, and that was all kind of propagated by the NED and all these NGOs too as well. That's how smart and crazy and nefarious these people are and stuff. So
yeah, I haven't really seen anybody else call out for the ban of facial recognition
Ron
technology.
Placone has.
Yeah, but any other candidate. I'm saying, Ron Placone's been covering this topic pretty.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to be very, very difficult to stop in the future, because I think technology is just going to get to that point where this is what they do. They're going to look at our faces, and that's going to be our identity. And it's really shitty. And I'm not for it at all. I think it's great that Bernie's actually being vocal about this. We'll see how long it takes Elizabeth Warren to come out. Come out and copy him.
This is a deep issue, but we can't get into that. Let's just get to the next topic over here, because we got to talk about the Epstein update.
Oh, you and Epstein always.
Pedo news isn't new. It's been a thing for a while, and here is Corey Feldman exposing Peter Wood. And I just want to say, with all the hurricane going on in Florida, we're going to get contact with Treasurer and get back to it. And the reason why we brought this up today, fam, is it's been getting too quiet in the news, ladies and gentlemen, and I done lost it. So we're going to get back into some Epstein stuff. I got some really good guests coming along. We're talking to some lawyers. We're trying to talk to getting some new guests here. We're going to really open this case back up and get into it. So here's Corey Feldman talking about pedophilia back in the days.
Corey Feldman has no idea what it's like not to be famous. He was just 3 years old in this McDonald's commercial.
McDonald's gift certificates. I literally was famous before I knew my own name.
His roles defined the 80s. Goonies.
This was my dream, my wish.
Stand By Me.
You call my dad a loony again, and I'll kill you.
License to Drive.
The only difference between you and that greaseball is that he has a license and you don't.
Films that propelled him into the spotlight for his entire youth. But being famous so young, he says, caused serious damage to him and his friends.
Do you feel like you missed out on a normal childhood?
What childhood? I don't know what that means.
A lost childhood and a loss of innocence. He blames the adults, not just those looking to profit from charming children, but also some with far more sinister motives.
I can tell you that the number one problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia. That's the biggest problem for children in this industry.
The casting couch even applies to children.
Oh, yeah. Not in the same way. It's all done under the radar.
Nobody talks about pedophilia.
It's the big secret.
And it's widespread?
Oh, yeah. I was surrounded by them when I was 14 years old. Surrounded. Literally. Didn't even know it. It wasn't until I was old enough to realize what they were and what they wanted and what they were about and the types of people that were surrounding me till I went, oh my God, they were everywhere like vultures.
Vultures who Feldman says abused him and his best friend, the late child actor Corey Haim, his co-star in The Lost Boys.
Well, what happens if my mom is dating the head vampire?
Feldman says the trauma of that pedophilia contributed to Haim's death.
There's one person to blame in the death of Corey Haim, and that person happens to be a Hollywood mogul. And that person needs to be exposed, but unfortunately I can't be the one to do it. But the person that knows who did it and knows who he is watching right now, I guarantee you. Yeah.
Intriguing.
Yeah. There was a circle of older men that surrounded themselves around this group of kids. And they all had either their own power or connections to great power in the entertainment industry.
Feldman won't name names. And he admits his friend had a struggle with addiction, which he says was a mechanism to cope with his demons.
It was a symptom.
It was a symptom, correct.
Are we in it?
All right, so that was just one video from Corey Feldman, whatnot, you know. I mean, how do we not believe this stuff after all this stuff that's coming out with Epstein and his ties and whatnot? And like he said, that's the big secret of Hollywood, the pedophilia. You know, and he goes into details in some of his articles that he wrote and some of the information he put out there, and it really is sickening what they did to these people at 14, what they did to these kids, you know, and it could have drove Corey Haim into this depression and this drug usage, and could be one of ultimately the thing that, you know, made him kill himself. And you hear all these stories about all these kids, you know, killing themselves and just so lost and hurt, and here's an avenue and a connection and stuff. He even went on The View, and the thing that really bothered me about The View is watch Barbara Walters almost shame him for this stuff. And this is how Hollywood, this is how they treat each other. The big club that you ain't in. Go ahead.
I'm saying that there are people that were the people that did this to both me and Corey that are still working, they're still out there, and they're some of the richest, most powerful people in this business.
And they are
and they do not want me saying what I'm saying right now.
Are you saying that they're pedophiles?
Yes.
And that they're still in this business?
Yes.
That's what, and that's what you're saying in your book. When you talk to when you talk to
and
parents,
they don't want me here right now. Trust
Corey,
me. They want me dead.
There are a lot of parents out here who want to put their kids in this business. Their kids are cute, they're great actors. What would you say to a parent who just has the best of intentions, who's coming here with their child? If you're saying that there's a lot of predators in this industry.
It's a many-feathered bird. Okay? Be careful what you wish for. That's what I'll tell you. You know, don't go into it with naivety. Don't go into it thinking that it's all roses and sunglasses.
You're damaging an entire industry.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to say that it's a very important, serious topic.
You said that there was one gentleman in the industry who did not take advantage of you. He was not a pedophile. You said it was Michael Jackson.
Of all people.
What?
All right, so yeah, you know, he later on
God.
to talk to say that he did have an uncomfortable moment with Michael Jackson when Michael Jackson showed him a book or something, but he said that Michael Jackson never touched him and whatnot. But did you see Barbara Walters?
Yeah, that's disgusting. You're ruining an entire industry. The industry ruined him. It's clear he has issues about this. Multiple people, and Pasta and I have been in LA for a while. Multiple people have talked about pedophilia here. Multiple people have famous people and non-famous people have always said, "Oh, this is how it is. This is how you get, where you need to get." And it's not just pedophilia. It's sexual favors and sexual relations with people, powerful people, and these powerful people can buy and manipulate and influence and do whatever they want. This isn't a conspiracy theory like some people are going to write this off and say, oh, this guy's crazy. This is a reality. And if Harvey Weinstein didn't prove it, and if Epstein didn't prove it, I don't know what will prove it, because it's all very clear how this business goes in if you do go into it, like what he said, naivety, and you don't know what you're doing, and you're young and easily influenced and easily manipulated.
Isn't it crazy, like this whole industry, fam, that we really thought it was like kind of like an open game. Like we were I had my whole friends, this whole industry, we're going to come here, we're going to study acting, we're going to we're going to get headshots, we're going to get jobs, we're going to do scenes, we're going to break ourselves into the business. And we've known a few people maybe here and there that get into it, but it really is a controlled environment. You know what I'm saying? And they choose who they're going to freaking, prop up. And that's why you see some of these names coming forward nowadays, and these names hitting these lists, because they got them at a young age. Hey, we'll make you famous. We'll make you a star, but just do this, do that for us. You know what I'm saying? And
that's why you see a lot of the people who started as young kids be troubled with addiction, troubled with a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's really, really
Elijah
sad.
Wood was talking about it.
It's really sad. Yeah, he's one of many, by the way. This isn't, like, again, a conspiracy theory. Like, he's one of many that's talked about that.
Disgusting.
That's interesting about Michael Jackson, though, that there's a lot of controversy. I don't want to get into that, but there's a lot of controversy of people who believe he's innocent, people who believe he's guilty, and that he was framed because So
well, let's put it this way, like Corey Feldman also talks, when he first talked to the authorities about his issues, when he went to the police department to report this stuff, that they were just so interested in getting Michael Jackson that they ignored his request and people to look into, and they kind of went unscathed, and they're still working and operating today.
But why won't he talk about it? That's
He does. Once again, people don't want to name names. Sometimes they're scared. I mean, listen, we had a video this last week with Zach Voorhees, and we didn't talk about this, but we asked Zach Voorhees who possibly hit the tripwire against Tulsi Gabbard. He was afraid to talk about it. He asked me if he believed in the deep state, and then he kind of went off into a third party that could have done things. But it's hard calling out some of these people sometimes, because in fear for your life, people disappear. They disappear all the time, and there's all these talks about certain people that were in the music industry that were going to expose these pedophilia rings, and they ended up dead. People that I knew, like, from Mobb Deep and, all these other people who would, their lives just ended, unexpectedly. And so, I mean, fear of being killed if you call these people out. But another Epstein news, that was just one part of it, because we can get into the deepness. And, there's Zach Voorhees, by the way. If you haven't checked it out, please do. Let's get into this other stuff real quick. Just in other Epstein news, French authorities, and we talked about this, we said, keep an eye on France. He had a house in France. We haven't talked about France, but authorities are looking for Jean-Luc Brunel, who had strong ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this guy was his model recruiter, and there's a bunch of articles out there. He's vanished, fam, like a ghost. Nobody can find him right now. And they're out there looking for him. And this is the guy who found Christy Turlington and all these other famous models. He was last seen right before Epstein was getting arrested. They say he has a lot of dirt, so we don't know. Was he whacked? Was he killed? Is he hiding out? Nobody knows, but everybody's going to be looking for Jean-Luc Brunel, who is Jeffrey Epstein's model scouting pal, and he has disappeared without a trace. So let's keep our eyes on that, and let's keep our eyes on France, because France investigators have opened up the book themselves. Then also we have Epstein breaking news too as well, is that just recently they discovered another hunting ground, fam, for Jeffrey Epstein, which means more people involved, more helpers, more groomers. It was dance studios, fam. He was recruiting young girls in dance studios. We'll make you famous, I'll make you a model, you're a dancer model, whatnot. So somebody had to be helping him. They even had situations where they flew two model dancers from New York to Florida. So the authorities have to look at this. Who aided and abetted him, they need to go to jail. They need to be pulled under the question. So once again, a new hunting ground for Jeffrey Epstein that we just discovered. He was also scouting the dance studio.
Yeah, it was just released today, this article.
Yeah, I caught it last night. It was laid out. I said, well, who's helping him? And it says in the article, no one knows if the people helping Epstein were questioned yet. Well, in New York, you go to the authorities, you make the phone calls, you call the police department, you say you want to know who helped Jeffrey Epstein. Who in these dance studios fed him these girls? More examples of how this whole Epstein case is gone crazy, fam. I'm not going to touch on this so much. People did whole videos on this. The footage from the outside the jail cell is unusable, and the FBI hunts for clearer recording. WTF, fam?
Didn't they just like shut down the case though? Because
they didn't shut down the case at all. I mean, they're trying to dive into more things, but the fact that he's dead now.
Yeah.
We thought that it would lead the avenue to get into different places, open up the things to say we can get in there, but that's not the case. Because take a look now too as well. Not only did they not have, and this is a big fail. I don't give a shit. William Barr, Donald Trump, you got the most wanted guy, ever you're holding, and you don't make sure that everything's operational. That just looks bad on you. Regardless if you say it was the Clintons or anybody else, whatever. And here's another thing. The investigators, and we're still waiting. This is from a week ago. They still haven't raided the new Jeffrey Epstein's New Mexico ranch, fam.
You want to go?
I do want to go, but how can they have not got in there? You know what I'm saying? And we talk about, when you look at this place, this is the place where he wanted to start transhumanism. He's already a scientist, philanthropist of sorts. He's dedicated to science. So people are kind of like, elaborating on Twitter, well, what's going on? We got to get in there because where are those tunnels leading to? The Santa Fe Institute?
Weird.
Are they leading to labs? Was there a lot of science work done there?
So strange.
This is so strange because those stupid videos and all that. Well, we call them stupid videos, but when you see Alex Jones talking about fetuses being sold and stuff like that, this is the guy who wants them.
That's so fucking
This is the guy who wants them. And Planned Parenthood is tied who? With Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton and the Clintons tied with who? Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh.
So now you start to think, oh
You're
my God.
going down this rabbit hole, though.
These rabbit holes are freaking...
But there's no proof of anything.
I understand. But you know what? This is a big fail. Get on the goddamn property. Now it's coming to the fact that the state of New Mexico wants to seize the property so they can go in there. Get on the property and find out what's going on. We want answers. We don't want speculation. We don't want the minds to speculate, but these people who were connecting those dots, these are the dots they were talking about, fam. The guy was practicing transhumanism over there. Transhumanism.
What is exactly that?
I read about it. It's like the scientific way of breeding out diseases and
so like eugenics,
super sperm.
Eugenics, yeah. Like
and
so the Nazis did this way back in the day. They experimented with people.
Yes, they did.
This isn't just American Horror Story where they had that one season, but they actually did do that. So
that is it for Epstein. Let's get their shit together, ladies. Let's get our heads out of our ass. Government, let's get onto these properties and find out they should be on these properties. They took too long to get on the island. They're taking too long to get in here. What's going on in France? Get into these places and find out what's what. Sorry, fam.
Fam, I was just going to say, if we were monetized, we'd be demonetized with all your cursing.
Well, we're not monetized now because they won't monetize us.
You better start
practicing.
Talk
about this.
You better start practicing.
We want fudge and answers. Better? Johnny, you got something to close out the show with?
Yeah, today it was trending on Twitter that Walmart wants to end the sales of handgun ammunition and asks customers not to carry guns into the stores. I think that's interesting news for our fans who are very supportive of the Second Amendment. I don't know. What do you guys think about this?
This is such a hard issue.
I'm for gun control. I'm not for banning all guns. I am for gun control, though. I do think it's an issue.
Assault weapons are another thing too, and that's the thing too. But it's like, the people who are big Second Amendment advocates. That's always they say they want to protect themselves from the government and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I used to laugh at that, but now I'm starting I don't trust my government at all. God damn it, man! I don't want the CIA coming for my ass.
Yeah, but your guns aren't gonna be anything compared to what they can do for you. I understand the mindset behind it because we don't trust our government, but your guns aren't gonna help you if the weapons that our military industrial complex has and the control that they have, it's not gonna really help you. But I understand why people don't trust it.
I understand their reasons now. That's all I'm saying. It's just it's crazy.
I think it's ludicrous to say that you want to protect yourself. I think you should fight to have a government that you can trust more. I think that's why I think the gun issue is so much more complex.
Run for local positions is better than buying an assault weapon.
Yeah.
That's why I do
regain
feel that
control
way. I
of the
really do. We
government.
have to take back our government, and it starts on the local level, fam.
Yeah.
So maybe you should run.
No, what? Stop! Like Nancy is like trying to get.
Yeah,
She's like
they
trying to
would.
get
I should run for city council. She should run for congresswoman. I say you take on what's her name? You take on Judy Chu, and I'll take on Adam Schiff. Let's do this, fam. Let's do this. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Do we have any shout-outs, Johnny?
Last thing is, we don't know when it happened, but Tulsi got an update on her website.
She's got an issues.
She's got issues page now, so you guys can check that out. Before you can check that on Tulsi 2020.
Oh, and I want to make an announcement. I will be like either tonight or tomorrow. I should have a video out in response to a certain TYT reporter who made an entire video about like looking like she was about to cry because I said some things about Elizabeth Warren, and Elizabeth Warren yesterday came out saying that it came out that she wasn't supporting Medicare for all. She said we need to have access to health care. She used the same words that other people, other centrists have used, the same exact language that is a signal to all of us that says access to health care, affordable health care. Anytime a politician says that, they are signaling that they they're going to listen to these big insurance companies. And I'm sorry, but anybody defending Elizabeth Warren now loses credibility because that is the one issue that progressives, the majority of us, will not budge on. Yeah. It's Medicare for all or bust. There's no middle ground on that. And for her to be running as a progressive and people equating her to Bernie Sanders, to me, is ridiculous. And I will have a great video in response to that with receipts of all the money she has taken and the problematic ties she has with a lot of these big Wall Street people. While she's finger wagging, a lot of it is symbolism and it's not actual legislation. So let that be clear. I can't wait to go
Save the good
after
stuff
that.
for the thing, fam. Don't give away the red meat. We're the QAnon left here. And and also Emma says that Elizabeth Warren is the second most progressive candidate on that stage. Just want to send some more shout outs because Michael Cruz says we both should run. Mr. Orochi, he says Progressive Voice and David Dole went after Nico. Yes, and I responded to the Progressive Voice. He hasn't responded back. I gave him the reasons why we are supportive of Tulsi and whatnot and foreign policy. We know a little bit about it.
And
Timothy Brunel. Sorry.
Something. I trust Jimmy Dore a lot when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to him seeing a lot of things, and he is extremely supportive of Tulsi. I trust a lot of our independent media who really are supportive of Tulsi, because as independent media, you're not just looking at one-dimensional or two-dimensional sides of an issue. You're looking at the overall picture, the connections that are happening simultaneously, and it's a lot to look at. But when you do this is what you do. You do have a different opinion on things, and you don't necessarily give into the manipulations that they try to impose on you. So when I say like I like Tulsi and I support her, it is also because I just have this feeling like she is on the right path. She has shown me through her actions as well, and I think people pushing the smears against her are just ignorant of a lot of the facts that we were privy to. So.
Yeah. Well, David Meisel says we should be called Lanon, which is the left QAnon. Lanon. Love it, Dave. Timothy, Michael Cruz, Jim Garrison, thank you guys so much. Kathy Lloyd, we love you. Pork Chop, David Meisel.
Hi, Pork Chop.
Doug, Tim, we love the Pork Chop, man. And Jenny Blake, I love that one. Also some people on the Facebook, too, as well, in case we missed anybody. Kyle Lawrence just joined us. Ashley, New Hampshire, we love you. Thank you so much.
No, that's Ashley Nicole.
Pijman, my man. Pijman G, love you. Craig P, love you. Gilbert Flores, Steve Wilbrent, thank you so much.
Hey, guys.
For ladies and gentlemen, I am Pastor Jardula.
And Fiorella.
Johnny Sue on the ones and twos.
Combo out.
We love you.
Bye.